Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise this evening on adjournment to make some comments around a really important issue that's been in the community across Tasmania for months and months now, and that's about the elite pathways for players in Tasmania in football. There's a lot of discussion that's had around football over recent weeks and even just today in this place. And what we know at a time where Tasmanians are keen for an AFL team, Tasmanian Labor are keen for an AFL and AFLW teams in Tasmania, but there's a real problem with a gap in the pathway for players that see themselves playing at the elite level. Months ago, I wrote to the Minister for Sport about this concern, about players that right now are at the beginning of that pathway and see themselves a future in the AFL, and what's going to happen in Tasmania between now and when we actually achieve that outcome. We know that there are players considering their future that are leaving Tasmania to secure this future for themselves, and that's not what should be happening right now when we have such big ambitions for this state. I took the opportunity a few weeks ago to meet both with the NTFA and also two of the standout clubs in the north, Lonnie Football Club and North Lonnie, and I've had the opportunity to meet with players as well. And I rise tonight to raise this because I know today there's been a meeting between the Launceston Football Club and AFL Tasmania, and I know over recent weeks there's been a lot of conjecture about what has been the right or not the right way to actually engage in those conversations to secure the future of elite football in Tasmania, but also importantly to secure that elite pathway for the young people of Tasmania that have for years and years dedicated themselves to their passion and their support and their sport, but are now being faced with a gap right at the time where they should be so excited about what's happening in the future. And I want to acknowledge both Launceston and North Launceston. They are organisations with significant history in Tasmania, one of the most successful and one of the oldest footy clubs in Tasmania. And it seems to me that when they're expressing concerns, they should be heard because they've got a serious contribution to make to the conversation. It's unusual. It's a bit like, the north-south, the Melbourne-Sydney, those counterpoints that happen in conversations. It's a bit unusual for Launceston and North Launceston to stand together, but a few weeks ago they did stand together to raise their concerns to AFL Tasmania about the future of the TSL. And I know that the concerns were expressed at the board level of the club, at the coaching and support levels of the club, and also in the players of the club. And it's not just about that elite pathway, but within the absence of the elite pathway and with the absence of successful clubs, you're also then undermining those grassroots and those junior opportunities because both clubs have really strong programs right across the spectrum in footy. Now, there were some meetings that occurred. I know North Launceston chose not to attend the first meeting, but they did actually publicly and directly raise a series of concerns, questions that remain unanswered. But I'm happy to report that today, out of a meeting that occurred, the Vice President of North Launceston met with AFL Tasmania in what has been described as a first step of building a bridge to ongoing constructive conversations. I suppose the questions that really remain are, is it actually possible to restructure and deliver an elite level program in Tasmania in the period of time that's been set out? Has there actually been a commitment to make that there is no gap in that elite pathway for Tasmanians? And is it really the best thing to do to bring to an end the TSL in Tasmania? Now, I know that these clubs and others across the state have been calling for more conversations and more consultations, and I just trust that AFL Tasmania, from the feedback they had from the club today, are genuinely open to engage with and hear from the clubs to ensure that as a state we work towards having the best level of football in Tasmania, that the people that are there and have been building it for such time with great regard and great history and great clubs and great community are considered and listened to respectfully in that conversation.